Right. What is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. As always, I'm your host, Coach JK McLeod, and I am welcoming back Melissa to the show. And for those of you who are not familiar with her, she is now an annual guest on the Help Me Understand podcast right around this time of the year as we're closing out the year. And first, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to make yourself available for today's episode. I truly, truly appreciate it. So let me first start with expressing gratitude for you being here. And always, because I know you listen to the podcast, I have to make sure that I take just a few seconds at the beginning so that I don't forget later to say thank you to anyone who is choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. I know now more than ever, for real, you have so many different podcasts that you can and probably do consume. So when I say I don't take it for granted, I truly mean I don't take it for granted when you choose to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. So without further delay, how I'm going to start this off is a little bit different. I'm going to start off with reading a portion of the caption that you wrote on January 1st of 2025. And this will kind of help, I think, transition into the conversation we're going to have today.
Okay.
So in January 1st of 2025, you posted a graphic with just the text that said closed for spiritual maintenance. And in that post, in the caption, you wrote, "Dearest friends, followers, and most importantly, future me. Here ends another chapter in this beautiful and messy book of life. 2024 was, with all its faults, pretty magical. It's important that we take this time to reflect on how far we've come. We've come a long way, baby. Tapping into my senses this year allowed me to recognize some of the obstacles I've placed in my own way. It helped me recognize areas of my life where I'm doing too much and possibly where I could do a little more and definitely where I could do better. With a theme of encore, I'm giving myself an opportunity to revisit some of my greatest hits, retry some items I didn't accomplish on previous lists, and reflect on areas where I found joy. At first, I thought this word came to me in a dream or in the flow of the shower or even over a cup of tea. But if I'm honest, this is funny, I think it came to me through the works of Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie. Or maybe it was during my nightly reading of magical fantasy books, Dragon Riders Unite. As you will see, I left a lot of blank spaces on my hashtag 25 for 2025 list. So I'm going to skip down to the end where you say 2025 is a year of do-overs, replays, comebacks, reunions, reappearances, repeats, welcome performances, bravos, extended applause, conclusions, renewals, and agains. Welcome 2025, encore. So with that, you're such a good writer.
Wow, that brought me to tears a little bit. It's weird
Yeah,
hearing your own writing.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's just, you're such an epic writer. So again, welcome to the Help Me Understand podcast. Welcome back. How have you been?
I have been incredible. And I think being able to do this with you every single year has been such a joy. And it reminds me that I need to go back and reread what I write because it so aligns with the year. So I'm doing great. It's been a great year of encore. And I'm just excited to talk to you about it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm truly stoked to have you back on the podcast. I selfishly am now look forward to your annual appearance. And at some point, we probably will make this more than annual. Just as a heads up, we might hit you up. I look forward to this episode, specifically in this conversation, selfishly, because it helps me get into that mindset of really kind of thinking differently as I transition into, Lord willing, another year. So for those who may not be familiar with the backstory of the 25 and 25, 24 and 24, and where that started, first, you all should have listened to the previous two episodes. And if you haven't, don't stop here and go back. listen to this one all the way through, and then you'll be able to go back and listen to the other two. And I'll link those in the show notes if you want to check those out. But first, Melissa, can you start with sharing some of the backstory of where I guess I'll call them the yearly themes came from?
Yeah, I once again cannot take credit. I totally begged, borrowed, and stealed it from Gretchen Rubin and Liz Craft's podcast, the Happier Podcast. But it was all in a time of my life where I was kind of launching into what I didn't know was about to be a hectic few years. And so I started creating these lists as ways to keep myself accountable and to do something different than I want to lose another 15 pounds or I want to add 30 pounds to my squat. And my goals back then were like everyone else's resolutions, where it was just aesthetic based or career minded or something to do with, improving my social life, which is great. All those things are great. But this one gave me a little bit more it was almost a little bit more poetic, a little whimsical. So what you do is, and this is what I did, is I chose a one-word theme of the year, which kind of sets the tone for how you pick your list. And then back when I did it, I selected, I think it was 2019 was the first time I started it. And so it was 19 things that I wanted to do in 2019. And I actually had two lists. One was things I actually wanted to check off, and another was things that were kind of bonus where I was doing for others. So you create your one-word theme, your list, and then there's always a challenge that the podcast gives you on an annual basis of something that you want to accomplish in that year. But I think what was most important about it is it gave me a way to kind of reframe where I was going in that year to come. And little did I know it would set me up to have some really great structure for how to appreciate the little things all throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Okay. And as someone who knows the backstory, I think you recapped that very well. There's so many, we were talking before we hit record, we could do one episode purely just about the backstory. And go down a lot of different avenues with that. So you summed that up very, very well, very succinct fashion. Let me first ask you, Chance.
Yes, there's usually several other words that don't make the cut. I would venture to say with Encore, I mean, it's funny because I could just tap on my Instagram and be like, let's look and see what it was. But I will throw words on there that have many meanings, and then some words that are just very specific about what you're trying to accomplish. So an example of one of the ones I had on the list was, I think I had rise on there because I don't know, you can rise dough, or you can, rise early in the morning. There's just a lot of ways you can use that word. So golden, I know golden was on one of my years. I thought that could have been a really fun word. But yeah, there's usually a series in my notes of on my phone every year of several words I choose.
And do you have a process? I'm going to say process, and that sounds so regimented, and I don't think that's really the vibe here. However, I can't really think of a different way to frame it. Do you have a process where you are just, as you think of different words, you jot those down just at any point throughout the year? Or does it skew more towards I'm going to set aside some time to really sit down and do this? Does that go for you?
I never sit down and do it.
Okay.
No, that never. It's usually something that comes in a song, or you're reading a book and a word comes across the pages of the book, or you hear a word and it's used in a different context and you think about how, that could be a word that would fit many different aspects of my life.
Okay. Yeah, and that's very, very relatable. Just earlier today, so today is Tuesday, December 30th. I'm recording like 3 different things today. So today's Tuesday, December 30th. Just a few hours ago, Kelly and I just recorded an episode of Lifting, Running, and Living, another podcast that I co-host with her. And one of the things that I was talking about as we were talking about coming up with a word for the year is one that's a strong possibility for me is one that just, I was listening to something probably a few months ago or reading something a few months ago, and just the way that it processed in my brain was different than it's ever processed before. I'm not going to give it away quite yet. So it's just kind of been lingering the entire time. So I'm a very similar process where sometimes something just kind of comes to you and you just kind of hold on to it. So, okay. So with Encore, what I did is I'm actually looking right now, and For those of you who may be watching this on YouTube or anything like that, no, I'm not about to do any sort of like a screen share in a PowerPoint because, again, that's just not the vibe here. However, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the graphic that you had posted that had your 2025 by design. And again, as a reminder, what Melissa referred to, or the website that she's referring to, I will put a link in the show notes to Gretchen Rubin's website where you can get access to all of these tools that she has available, these different resources. It's pretty phenomenal that she does all this, like makes these things available for people. So something that immediately caught my eye was you mentioning that Encore was about an opportunity for you to potentially go back and revisit certain things. Now that I think about it, is this your graphic or her graphic?
That's mine. I make a different one
okay,
every. Yeah,
that's what
I make a different one every year.
Okay,
She has graphics too, though.
yeah,
Hers are great.
okay.
I just do mine a little bit different.
Okay, so this graphic. Okay, so you're a writer and you also do graphic design. Fantastic. So on this particular graphic, you have a few different columns, and one of the columns says things I missed, and this immediately caught my eye. Specifically because in the coaching world, very, very often, I'm finding that folks are always thinking that the turn of the year or going into a new year has to be about doing something new, always trying to move forward and oftentimes not going back to revisit the things that potentially were left undone. And let's examine like why those things were undone. And also, does it mean that those are no longer important things to you? So that's kind of where my perspective comes. Do you have that list in front of you right now, or do you have access to that right now? Okay. Oh, underneath the things I missed, you've got a handful of things, even some that date back to 2021. So what I'd like to do is have you pick just a couple of things from this list of things I missed. And I'd be interested to hear any backstory on those, on a couple of them. And did you get them done this year? It's your pick, because there's a whole range here from like surf lesson to tattoo replacement to outfits in my city, like all sorts of stuff. So
so I would say the first thing I would acknowledge is what you just said about people having things that they don't accomplish and then feeling down on themselves about it. I always leave room for bonus areas, right? A lot of the stuff when you and I talk, one of the pieces I missed in the opener, if someone hadn't seen it, was that I go off social media for the majority of the year. So from January until November, I'm off social media completely, which allows me to kind of focus on what I'm doing in the world and how to accomplish some of these things, but also just live a little bit more without the scrolling. And so what I did is last year when I created this list, I knew I would have, not only would have a bunch of things I didn't accomplish on my past 18, 19, 20, 21 years, but I'd also have things that I never even thought of that I add to my list when I post it on social media. So there's some things that are on there that I never even thought would happen that ended up on my list. But as for the things I missed, there are quite a few I still haven't done. There are some that are seasonal, and I hope people think about this when they're creating their list. To visit a tulip farm or a lavender farm, you have to actually pay attention to the seasons that those flowers are in bloom. Otherwise, it could be
that is an interesting point.
Yeah, so I have had that one on my list for a couple of years now, to visit a tulip or lavender field. It's going to happen someday. Until now, I will appreciate the tulips that pop up in my front yard whenever the first frost ends. But the Apple CarPlay has always been something. I don't enjoy being in my car because I have an old 2016 CRV. And one way, instead of thinking I need to buy a new car, or like upgrade my life, was let me just get an aftermarket Apple CarPlay. I did do that this year. Thank you, Best Buy.
Interesting. Okay.
I haven't done tattoo replacement or surf lesson, but meditation, that one you'll see was on my 2021 list and my 2022 list. And I this year decided and if you go back and listen to last year, I started every morning with a song last year. Best decision of my life. Still look back on that as my favorite thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
This year I was like, okay, I'm going to start with meditation. I want to first encourage anyone who's creating one of these lists, do not give yourself a daily task of something you might not enjoy. So I put on there start my morning with meditation. I did. I meditated for 100 days straight. And then
snap.
after which is great. I started my
Okay.
day with 100 days of meditation. And then I would even sometimes hit the extra activity because I was using the Headspace app.
Okay.
And I would do the extra activity and I loved it. And then after 100 days, I was kind of like, okay, I did that. I didn't notice a massive change in my day. I felt a little bit more calm, but I'm not by nature a low energy person.
Okay.
So dancing in the morning and singing in the morning was much more fun for me.
Yeah.
So I did check that box. I give myself credit, even though I didn't do it every single day of this year, but I did it for 100 straight days. And so I did do that one. And then of course the couple other ones on here, I did redo my reading area with my husband. So we have a nice little library area.
And if I remember correctly, like he is a reader.
Big time reader. Yeah.
Okay.
His stack of books is always bigger than mine.
I saw the photo with like his stack of books and then your Kindle like on a stand or something like that, which was pretty hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on that meditation thing for a minute. Why initially, if you can remember back to 2021 and then 2022, why was that on your list initially?
Every book I've ever read on happiness or mental well-being or anything to self-improvement, you always hear that they meditate, or I do transcendental meditation, or everybody that you read about that is successful in this life has a meditation practice. And I have the busiest mind, which I've talked about. We all it's very easy to get wrapped up in the world. And so I was like, this will be the thing that's going to make me peak and be the best version of myself.
Yeah. Okay. So then this year, why was it important for you to go back to that thing?
I think because I felt like I was failing at it every time I tried it.
Okay. Interesting. So initially, did you set out to, this is the selfish part, folks, because this is something that I've just decided I'm not putting on my to do, just because I just don't. Anyways.
Want to?
No, not at all. Like not in the least bit. What was the question I was going to ask? I was going to ask, when you went into it this year, what was the expectation though this year as far as frequency?
It was going to be, the app itself, you can just tap on, it already sets you up for the morning. So it has a morning session, afternoon session, or evening session, and it keeps your streak. And so I was just going to do the 3 to 10 minute every morning. And sometimes I would do it in bed. And sometimes I would be sitting there in front of the fireplace or outside. But after 100 days, it felt kind of like that was a nice milestone to hit and say, I did that.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a lesson that can be pulled from that. I think there's quite a few. And one that jumps out to me is that oftentimes the story that people will tell themselves is, well, I don't know that I should do that thing or commit to that thing, because if I don't get X result out of it, then I'm going to feel like I wasted my time. And a good portion of where my perspective comes from on that is in being in interactions where the procrastination and just like the anxiety is just like building up, because it's like, well, I don't know what the right thing is to pick, so I'm going to pick nothing. And now you did something for 100 straight days. You're like, I'd just be straight up with you, paraphrasing. I don't really know that I really got a whole lot out of it. However, is your life any worse off for having spent, 3 to whatever minutes a day for that? And you could say, okay, I did the thing and gave it a good run. Because I would say 100 days, whether it's 100 days in a row or 100 days out of, 200, I'd say that's a pretty significant amount of like experience and data to be able to say whether something is for you or isn't for you.
Yeah. And I did learn I can only do guided meditation. So that's something I learned. I'm not great with the quiet, just count, breathe, count, let it go. That's not for me. But I think the great thing is I tried it and I can say that's not for me now. And I don't feel like I failed because I did try.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. I like that. All right. So love the advice that you're passing on to other folks, like picking something that you truly want to do. that you really, really want to do. So I think that's really, really solid advice. Okay. So moving into something a list that you have been going through. And I think right now, if I remember correctly, so you have 25 things that you're grateful for in 2025. Now, I know that there's a theme each year of like read 20 whatever and 20 whatever. This year for 20 or coming up in 2026, it's move, right? Move 26 and 26. So move 26 minutes a day, like that. I'm emphatically co-signing that one. What was it for 20? Was 25 the 25 things you're grateful for? Was that the overall theme, or was that a you spinoff?
That was so. In the past years on those posts, I remember in 2020 when I started the posts, the leaving social media and coming back, I only came back to post my list, and so it was things I did in 2020 in spite of 2020, right? Like,
That's right.
it was because you couldn't do half the stuff. Like, you might as well throw in your list in the garbage. And
Right.
so it started out in spite of, and then when we were starting to come out of the darkness of it all, I changed it to in honor of, and now I just it's essentially a gratitude list that starts on November 1st and ends tomorrow, the next day. I guess I probably need to do a couple posts, but
you're at 23 on my count, I think.
So we've had quite a few different challenges where they've had get outside for 22 minutes or whatever it was. Read 25 and 25 was this year's challenge, but I was very angry about it. And it was because they'd already done it in 2021. And then I remembered my word was encore, and I was like, never mind. This is what it's meant to be.
Talk about getting smacked in the face with your own
word. Yeah.
The own thing, like, you picked it, sister. Here you go. That is interesting. Okay. So you may or may not know this, sarcasm. I am all about gratitude. Like, so when I saw the 25 things that you're grateful for, like, that really jumped off the page. So I went back through just to take a look, and there's a few that I just want to ask you to expand on a little bit here and there. Of course, the first one is going to be near and dear to my heart, which is one of the things that you were grateful for was prioritizing strength training.
Yeah.
Open to you just kind of riffing on anything related to that. I'll maybe pick a couple of other ones too.
Yeah. So one of the things I put on my 25 by design list, or 25 for 25 list, was to do 25 slow squats every day. And so that was a big focus for me. And then I also put, I want to sweat every day. And so to me, it was, I got to check both boxes by prioritizing strength training. And so instead of me sitting here and telling you about how I squatted 25 times a day on my post, I did an all-encompassing post about prioritizing strength training in 2025, which means I also got to check off those two boxes. However, I was able to put that one on there as something I was grateful for because I prioritized it on my list, and it became part of my everyday, or most days of the year.
Okay. Totally makes sense. You went on what looked like a pretty epic trip also. And was the trip specifically to Guatemala that you went on?
It was to Guatemala, yeah.
Okay. Can you share a bit about that? That was, let me see, I think it appeared in a few different ways, but I jotted down the one on the 5th, like embracing self-love trip to Guatemala. So talk to us a bit about that, wherever you want to go with that one.
On my 25 for 25 list, I put monthly solo adventures. That was just on my list. I had no intention of like focusing. I was just thinking little trips, like I'm going to go to the art show, or I'm going to go, to the flea market, or just go do adventures by myself. And I had a friend who was showing me these wide toe box shoes. And I was like looking at the story on Instagram. I needed to buy these wide toe box shoes. And the next post was the person who was selling the wide toe box shoes had a trip or a spot open on a trip to Guatemala. And I just hit click, and I looked, and I was like, this looks like it's for me. It's a sign. I took it as a sign, and I booked it, not even knowing where Guatemala was on a map, which is embarrassing. But yeah, so I ended up taking a solo trip to Guatemala, and I was forced out of my comfort zone, and I fell in love with the 20 strangers and had the best week of my life, really just focusing on taking care of myself. But that particular post was kind of a little tongue in cheek because the trip was about self-love, but I kind of hated the way that sounded. It gave me the ick a little bit. I was like,
Okay.
ugh, self-love. And then I realized after it was done, it was like, no, this is exactly what self-love is. It's caring for yourself, nurturing yourself, and putting yourself in a place where your health and mentally, physically, and spiritually comes first. Then you can serve others.
Okay. I don't consider myself like a conspiracy theorist most of the time. I do, however, feel like there may be a little bit of a theme that's forming with kind of your view or your initial reaction to kind of the self-love. I'm going to put it under the woo-woo category. Those are my words, not yours. And then also your thought process or kind of how things went for you when it comes to a meditation standpoint and your feedback around, just like you're a very active thinker, like things kind of constantly going on. So I think taking that time to really slow down can be, I don't know, it's very, very relatable. And though a lot of the people I work with are very, very much like that because they're very like type A, accomplished, go, 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 go. So the thought of first like taking 10 minutes a day to do anything that they don't feel is quote unquote productive is kind of crazy. And then also just a trip that potentially is really centered around like yourself and embracing self-love and things like that. I could see how like right off the bat, it's kind of like, what, here's my question though. Like, I know you said that it just seemed like that was for you. Can you dig a little bit more on that? Like, cause there's certainly, I've got to believe that there certainly are advertisements, marketing, random things, even on the, 2 months out of the year that you use social media that come your way. Why this one though?
Honestly, it was pictures of the food. The photos of the food.
That tracks.
I'm
So tracks because of a
It was
previous conversation
incredible.
that we
I mean,
had where you talked about
yes.
trying different things. Yeah,
Yeah,
that tracks.
and it was actually, that is a great point, is that the year I was in at the time when I booked the trip was scents, right? So I was focusing
Yeah.
on all 5 of those senses. And so when the colors of the food popped out, and then the beautiful scenery, it's right on a lake overlooking volcanoes. And it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, do you want to do breath work, strength training, yoga, sweat lodges, learn about the native culture? Yeah, of course I want to do all those things for a week with a bunch of strangers in the middle of the jungle.
Interesting. Okay. I like it. I'm going to ask you about one more, and then I want to open it up to a couple of things that you would like to share from your experiences, 25 things that you wanted to do in 25. So one other one that I wanted to get your perspective on or give a little background on was it was number 14, non-work related screen time. So one of the 25 things that you were grateful for in 2025 was non-work related screen time. Share with us some more about that one.
So it's funny, my meditation almost turned into a little bit of this, right? So like
okay.
instead of meditating, I started making my coffee and doing my hair. And like your post actually that you posted yesterday, something about, and I wish I had it in front of me, but it was basically about how we fill our brains with like podcasts when we're going for walks. And,
Yep.
we take our phone to the bathroom, and like we do all these things that don't allow us that think time. And so it's almost a double-edged sword, because I did dedicate that entire post to the fact that I watched trash TV, but it was, I think where I found the gratitude in it was that I reconnected with a lot of my family members, so that when you were a kid and you watch a TV show, the next day at school, everybody would get together and like gossip about whatever happened on that show the night before.
Yeah.
My family and I have always had that kind of connection with each other, where we were like, we all got around the TV for a certain thing together, and it was our thing. And now we still talk about those shows today. And so whether it's my, 86-year-old grandmother or my brother, we can talk about, we have a Survivor group chat. I haven't watched Survivor in 20 years.
Okay.
And that show, let me tell you, problematic if you go back and watch the old episodes. But it's one of those things, I know. It's one of those things that brought me together. The other thing about that post that allowed me to do was, there was a song that completely changed my year this year that I heard walking outside of a music venue during I was having like a bummer of a day. And I'm like, nope, you got to go do your walk. And so I do this weekend walk where I go through this arts district and then walk along the beach. And I'm outside of this music venue and Prince 7 just starts blasting at full acoustic sound. And I haven't heard that song in more than 20 years, probably, maybe 30. And so you hear this song and it just transformed my mood, that I went from a like melancholy walk to like a smiling, goofy run, listening to that song over and over in my headphones for the rest of the day. And I needed a reason to use that song, but the lyrics don't really align with anything I could match it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they say, like, when I was Googling the meaning of the song, it's supposed to be about potentially the 7 deadly sins. And I was like, this is like all 7 deadly sins, me watching all this television. So,
Right.
So it was a way for me to use that song and really get to kind of dive in. Plus I have a friend who's on a soap opera now, which I was very excited about. So it gave me an opportunity to shout out her as well.
That is super cool. Okay. Yeah, I was really interested in that one for a number of reasons. One of the main ones being, your continued like commitment to social media a couple months out of the year and then shut it down and then come back and then shut it down. And just that juxtaposition of that and then how screens are used outside of that. And I think that it can be easy for folks to like fill in the gaps of somebody's story in these like crazy parasocial relationships that we have, where it's like, oh, well, if she shuts her social media down for 2 months, then she probably doesn't ever really like
watch 30 seasons of The Challenge.
Yeah. Like she's not rewatching old MTV shows and whatnot. And P.S., you are right. It is so interesting to go back and look at shows now and realize like how big of an issue and how problematic a lot of this stuff would be these days if these shows
We've come a long way.
Yeah, big time. I can't remember what show I was watching that I used to watch as a, let's say, like teenager-ish, like junior high school-ish, that I was like, I can't believe that even that my parents were totally cool with this, and my parents were definitely not the most like, yeah, do whatever you want to do type household. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to me. Okay.
What I would say about the screen time, though, just to be kind of like clear about the boundaries there, is I would only do it when I was blow drying my hair, working out, or if I got on the treadmill. It's how I paired some things. Like, okay, you're gonna watch an episode, but you need to get on the treadmill and walk while you do it. And so it was my way of kind of balancing and pairing two things, something I needed to do and something I really like to do. And that's just, one way to kind of make sure that you're not just sitting there kind of absorbing it. The other part is I make sure that it doesn't infiltrate my my sleep hygiene. I think that's, the only real screens I have is my Kindle Paperwhite. So
yeah, that is I guess we'll put it under the hack category or tip. That is definitely a hack or tip that I've picked up myself. And I literally just had this conversation with myself yesterday because my YouTube algorithm is now telling me you might be watching too much true crime at this point. So now I'm trying to transition to, if that's popped up, then I'm going to be doing something like moving around, doing something to get that going. There was one other thing I wanted to ask you about. Oh, anything else from the gratitude list that you wanted to call out before I wanted to just get anything? I wanted to talk a little bit about your list of the 25 things you wanted to get into or accomplish in 2025, but anything else from the gratitude list? Because from my perspective, these are very well thought through, like no wasted gratitude here from my perspective at all. So anything else that you wanted to call out from there?
I would say that the best part about it is that it's kind of evolved to a gratitude list, but it actually started as one as well, because my first year I did this, my word was gratitude. So I started with gratitude, but it was trying to reframe darkness during chaos. Right. And then now it's more of a mindful, appreciate the small things and kind of finding a way that I can sit in gratitude for little things that we do every single day. Because just like you're grateful for a Tuesday, right?
Facts.
For me, it's how do I look back on my year and recognize how beautiful it was?
Mm, yeah, that's big. Last thing before we do close out that particular portion of it,
Mhm.
is really appreciated number 10, which was healthcare professionals, gratitude for
Mm.
healthcare professionals. And selfishly, with having a now college sophomore who's going into nursing, and then also just being as a dad, it like heightens my awareness of, as I think about my kids. And of course, like my daughter's in college, so she's a little bit further along. My he's 13 and he's in the eighth grade. So with her, having at this point, chosen career path and going down that route, you start to look ahead at that particular industry and you start to envision things like, and I've talked to my dad about this before and my mom, where I now am interested in like when they go to an appointment or when they have a consultation or when they're just dealing with different things from a medical standpoint. We have more conversation than before about that because, any feedback that they may have, I'm like, well, also picture that could be your granddaughter, who's the person who's wheeling you from one room to the next and then trying to calm you down if you've gotten some bad news or whatever it might be. So I just think about that. And then also just very transparently, just some of the ways that I have felt like healthcare professionals have kind of been attacked. And that's just my own thing. I'll just put, that's my spin on it. Um, as far as just some of the stuff that's been going on out in the political universe. So I appreciated seeing that on there because I think it's always cool to see other people that also recognize other people and professions, especially. So just wanted to say thanks for that.
Oh,
So I think that's
absolutely.
cool.
That one actually does stem from one of my 25 for 25. So I committed, because last year I was a little lax. I committed this year to seeing all of my doctors this year, which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
That was part of the earlier years of why I had to do gratitude, was to remind myself that like there are some things out of your control. So I promised myself I was going to see all my doctors, and I ended up seeing more than I cared to this year. There were just a couple incidences that popped up, but in a time where, and this is not to be disparaging against anybody has a loved one that's going through something or, is experiencing you can get put through the ringer when it comes to insurance or getting doctors to approve things. I have friends that are really struggling to help their kids get medication that they need because they're battling out these insurance companies or getting doctor approvals. And this post was not to be about that. It was to be focused on the people who are showing up every single day. And I have a niece who's a nurse, and just the work that she does is so awesome to hear about, but also it's got to be really tough. And so if your daughter's going to that profession, thank you. It was actually, I was having some issues when I got back from Guatemala. Nothing they did wrong, just, my body has some issues and reacted differently. And I was sick for 4 months, and it was actually a nurse, after 4 months of me trying all these different medications, a nurse who was like, oh, it's this. And she was right. And I'd seen when I say I saw several doctors, it was close to a dozen.
Right.
And this nurse practitioner was like, oh, I know what this is. Fixed it after one dose of medication. So it was just one of those things where you have to take time to appreciate people, and the people who are willing to share their research, the people who are willing to put their information out on, social media legitimately. Because that also can be dicey in of itself. But yeah, that one was really important to me this year, just because I want to take care of myself and be the CEO of my own health. But then the other part was like every single place I visited, I realized there are so many people it takes to keep these places going.
Big time. Yeah. Well, you transitioned really well, and I know we're going to be coming up on time here, so I want to make sure I leave space for you to share anything from your list of 25 in 25. So first, before you share anything from that, how did you go about creating the list of 25 things that you wanted to do or accomplish? And let me not put the words into your mouth, however you frame that list or what you call it. How did you come up with that?
So every year I have a different way of doing it. I've started, like you said, the graphic one was more of I wrote it out, I typed it out. But then historically, I might even have one here. I do kind of one of these.
Ah, okay.
And for those who are not watching on YouTube, it's just a big piece of white Crayola paper with all the crayons and markers, and I make colorful lists and ideas and try to categorize them and affinitize them into different subjects. And since I've been doing it for so many years, what I did is I went through all my old lists to see what needed an encore. What did I already do that I want to do again?
Okay.
And that's how I circled the ones I didn't get done that I really wanted to do. But like, then I sit there on New Year's Eve and I compile this list. Right now, I probably have about 50% of my list ready. I do have my word picked out. But I will say the way I've been doing it this year is just doodling. I've just been doodling and circling and coming up with different things. And I have a really interesting way I'm doing it this year. Every year is different.
Okay.
But I would say last year's list of the ones that I would say notably have made a difference was probably the quarterly honeymoons with my husband. Really just we've never been somebody who, when we got married, we eloped and we took a little mini honeymoon to San Diego, and nobody knew we got married until we were on that honeymoon. Our parents were not happy.
Oh,
but
man.
13 years of dating, at that point, you're like, let's just get this going. So, we did trips quarterly this year, and like, we hiked in the Canadian Rockies, and anybody who's ever seen a background of your computer that just comes with this beautiful crystal blue water, that is the Canadian Rockies. And it was an awesome little quarterly adventure that we took our honeymoon. And we do it every year. And it doesn't always have to be something extravagant like that. Sometimes it's just a quick trip away, but really intentionally spending time with the people that you love. And then the other one that I would say that was a redo was honoring my loved ones on Dia de los Muertos. So I wanted to do an offerenda a couple years ago. And then I've done little micro ones throughout the year. But this year, I really learned a lot, specifically in Guatemala, about not just like remembering the people that you've lost, but also honoring your ancestors. And so some really cool things about how those people sacrificed so much so that you and I could be having this conversation on this computer right now. And it seems like it's something that you would just be like, oh yeah, you read that in a textbook. But it's truly learning about the people who said goodbye to their children on the side of a cliff because they were taking off in a boat or they were taken on a boat and they never saw their children again. And life has completely changed. And so spending some time, not just honoring the people I've lost, but the people who came before them. And so that was something that I've really been diving into.
Man, just a year full of experiences, and the photos have looked like fantastic. Of course, I've got to ask, was there anything that you did not get done? Or what's something that you didn't do from your list of 25 and 25? Because I'm going to assume there's something. Or no, maybe not.
In some ways, I did not do improv or karaoke.
Oh.
I did not do either of those things. However, I did celebrate the 20 years of my UT graduation. I went to University of Tampa, the other UT. And my college roommates and I have, for the past 20 years, gotten together and we pick a weekend a year where we went to Austin, Texas this year and went to a sing-along piano bar where we sung until 2:00 in the morning. We're up like all night. None of us have done that since 20 years ago, but I counted that as my theatrical performance of karaoke. I didn't have the microphone, but I was singing very loudly in front of a lot of people.
Fair enough. Now the improv one, that would be,
I think it'd be fun. I'm just too much of a chicken.
Okay. Interesting. What is one, and we'll wrap in the next few minutes here. What's something from that list that maybe scared you a bit when you first put it on the list that you got done?
That I got done.
Yeah, because improv. Ooh.
Improv did scare me. This year, I didn't really put a ton of scary things on my list. Real focus of this year's list was to make sure that I felt like I tackled the things I wanted to do in the past that I hadn't accomplished. But I will say, like, the monthly solo adventure, there's a difference between being in solitude being alone and being lonely. And for a long time in my life, I got FOMO big time, like fear of missing out. I would see my friends out doing things that I either couldn't do, wouldn't do, or shouldn't do. And I would get this immense sense of, I feel left out. I feel lonely. They don't like me. And it was a lot of self-hate, which goes back to that whole thing of me thinking about this year of self-love kind of.
Yeah.
But I realize now that I do like my own company, even if my brain doesn't stop talking. I do like to go on little adventures by myself. And the other thing is that you don't realize until you're trying to do something by yourself that you're actually surrounded by people. So the example of me going to Guatemala by myself, I went to a country where I didn't speak the language, I didn't know the currency, and I was by myself. And I ended up sitting next to a man on an airplane who realized that I was an American woman by myself in Guatemala City. And he got me through customs, introduced me to his daughter that was my age, that went to school in Texas. And the two of them got me to my hotel. So I'm solo adventuring with other people, right? So you make friends and you learn about people and you have these awesome exchanges with people that you never would have had if you didn't say, I'm going to go on this solo adventure. And it doesn't have to be there. It could be to the coffee shop in the next town over. And you just happen to pick up a conversation with a retired man who's moved here from Germany, right? Solo adventures do not have to be to another country. They can happen right in your backyard.
Yeah. Man, that's so interesting. All right, I have another one for you from your list. If you were to go back to 2020, Melissa, and 2020 Melissa is looking at your 2025 list, what would 2020 Melissa say, I can't believe you did that, when they're looking at your 2025 list that you did get that done?
I think the reading, the amount of reading I've been doing. 2020, I read Harry Potter for the first time.
Okay.
And then when I finished it, I was like, I'll never read another book again. Nothing is going to be better than this series.
That just you reached the pinnacle at that
I was
point.
done. I was like, oh my gosh, I just read Harry Potter for the first time in 2020. No better year to read that series. And I think I would be amazed that I go to bed every single night reading books. And this year I've read more books in this entire year than I probably have read in my entire, I don't want to say entire life, but definitely more than my entire school life.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So big clip. Okay. Yeah. That question just, it just, you know, how my podcast flows, like things just kind of pop into my head. And, it's rare to be able to, pick the brain of someone and get the perspective from someone who has done something so consistently over this time frame, just from my experience, just to be quite honest with you. So it's just I hope that people have been able to, at the very least, just get the wheels kind of turning, because as we were talking before we recorded, I think that this is the easiest time of the year to create to impose this pressure on yourself to create something that has to have a very specific process, a very specific structure, a very specific strategy as to how you form it. And from the outside looking in, or looking at the screen here, I just see something that is very, very, like, respectfully, very simple. It's very basic. It's very simple. And it allows for so much creativity. And it's like almost structured creativity, or foundational creativity, not structured, because sometimes people think structured as far as like it's inside of a box, but it just has this, to me, it just has such a very simple, like, yeah, here's where it starts.
Well, you build the foundation and then you jump off.
Yeah.
Right. You jump off the foundation.
That's it's my favorite. Yeah. It's my favorite thing. All right. I'm going to ask you if there is anything else from your 25 that you wanted to share before you reveal, or are you open to revealing your 26? Okay.
I am pretty sure I'm not going to change anything in the next 24 hours. So.
Okay. And I apologize. I've got a phone somewhere going off in the background, but I'm going to let it roll.
Such as life.
So anything else from that 25 and 25 list that you wanted to?
I think the key is the blank spaces this year. right? So I jokingly put it along with Taylor Swift, Blank Spaces. That's the other part is, if you don't know, on my posts, I put a different song, very intentional with every single post. And that one was Blank Space.
Yeah, you are a crafts person when it comes to the musical choices, for sure.
I'm very thoughtful, even though Blank Space might be a little basic, but it was perfect, right? So Blank Space was to allow for that flexibility, right? If I can give anyone advice, if you're going to do a 26 for 26 list, one, don't put anything on there that is far too rigid. Like, I'm going to do this every single day. Don't do that to yourself, because you're going to feel really defeated if you don't accomplish it. Unless it's brush your teeth. Yes, brush your teeth every single day. But in general, I like to pick things, and I put this on, like, I break it all down on my little blog that I wrote, but choose things that are, one, things you need to accomplish, right? Like, if you need to go get your real ID or your passport renewed, or you need to file your taxes, put that on your list. You know, do your will. Those are the things that we all need to do. Do the things you need to do. Do some things you want to do. Like, if you really want to go to 3 live shows this year, go to 3 live shows. If you want to try foods from 5 different countries, put that on your list, right? Because those are fun to do. And then the third column I would say is, like, add things that require you to go do something with someone else, because none of this is fun by yourself. And it's really hard to take a lot of selfies. Like, you're just basically taking pictures of yourself all the time, which solo adventures required a lot of solo photos. And then I would say, if you're going to do a 26 for 26 list, the blank space idea for me in the past has been just the bonus section, kind of like the free space on the bingo card, where you just allow yourself space to have adventures that you weren't expecting, because it gives you an opportunity to say yes when things arrive at you. And then you can say, oh my gosh, yes, I could put that in one of my blank spaces. The majority of my 25 for 25 gratitude posts this year, they threaded in my 25 list. Yeah. But they went way off what their intention was. Like, they got to be so much cooler than the intention. So, you know, I think also listen back on some of the other posts, or the other podcasts that you and I had, because my year of tea was so fun. And they were just, last year's year of sense was really awesome, because you have 5 senses and you can do so much with that. But yeah, I would say have fun with it. Allow yourself to cross it out, erase it. And if you like to do a list in pencil, that works too.
Love it. That's great advice. And I jotted those 3 things down. So that's perfect for me too. Okay. So to finish things off, talk to us about your word or theme for 2026. What's the word, I guess?
Right. So first I have to say that when we were joking earlier about what were the other words you were thinking of, my word list for this year was very lengthy. It was venture, rise, spark, tilt, mend, soothe, steady, dare. I had dare in my head all summer, that I was going to take dare, like, so that you could just be like, Melissa, you won't do this. And then I would go do it. Because when I got most daring in 8th grade. Ascend, yield,
like
shift, lift. You know? I know. Like, I'll say yes to anything. That was pretty much like, but saying yes as an adult is really hard to do sometimes, because we get too much in our own way. Pulse. I had the word pulse, because that could have a lot of different meanings, where you could have, like, it could be a workout pulse, music pulse, you know, get the pulse on something. I had sea glass as one. But then rise and shine was stuck in my head for the past 2 months.
Okay.
And then yesterday, the word align kept coming up. It was like my car alignment needed to be done. And then I had a chiropractic appointment in the afternoon. None of this had to do with, like, aligning my goals or, like, having a spiritual alignment. Like, it was mechanical. If literal mechanics doing a squat, making sure that your knees are aligned. And so this is when I was showing you my scribbly paper. Yeah. That's what this is. And so it's, you know, humor and timing, like being, like, learning how to align your timing when you're making a joke with someone, your spinal column. There's so much you can do. And then, of course, if you're somebody who likes yoga or learning about the chakras, like, alignment is really important in that. When you're going into, I don't know. I'm very excited about alignment. I think it's going to be just align, but alignment is too focused on my car, and I know I need to get my tires rotated. I will do that. But even at work, like, aligning your team goals, it's a great time to do that if you're a leader. in your work environment or a leader in your home, like having a family set of family goals that you guys can be in alignment with your values.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm
align.
really, yeah. Okay. So that's the word,
Mm-hmm.
or do you still have like 24 hours to change it?
I could change it. I don't see it happening because I'm learning so much about really cool different types of alignment,
Yeah.
like
I
optical.
I
And
even
there's so
think
much.
about like a line, like line too, because you just in the first conversation that we had, just when you were starting to play on the words, I'm like, oh, I see how you can really take
You
something.
just gave me one.
Oh, I just
That's great. I'm going to add it.
yeah, just okay.
So the
So
other
a
one I liked was
line.
like culinary pairings, like aligning your like foods together. And so
Yep,
I've been learning different recipes and
you're right.
it'll be probably January 1st. I'll post it.
Before you close for the next 10 months. So okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start to wrap this. Thank you so much for coming back on again. I
Always my
truly,
pleasure.
truly appreciate it. I do again want to encourage folks to, at some point, like make some time with no deadline, make some time to go back and listen to the other episodes also, because I think, as we were talking, in the back of my head, I was like, oh man, like I'm approaching this as if somebody's already listened, and I'm okay with that. Because it's basically like a trilogy at this point. So we've got a 3-part trilogy going on here. I just really appreciate, again, the approach that you have and your willingness to kind of share your perspective on how this goes for you, because it's just, again, this is so, folks, if you want to completely stress yourself out over goals, visions, and things like that for the upcoming year, don't worry. Like, the algorithm will help you stress out over it. Or you could potentially take this perspective that's been shared with you in this conversation and perhaps go about it a bit of a different way. And I definitely think those pieces of advice of, if I jotted them down right, as you're creating the list of 26 things that you want to do, accomplish, however you want to frame it in 2026. One, leave a blank space. So leave some room there. Two, ensure that they're things that you want to do, things you really want to do and or need to do. Because I think your example of like getting the real ID and things like that, it's so easy for us to talk ourselves out of like, well, I'm going to do that. I should go to the doctor anyway. Well, yeah. And you've been saying that for the past 3 years. So that, and then also really challenging folks to pick a few things that involve someone else too. So I think that's great advice. All right. Anything else before we wrap?
I am just excited to hear if people end up doing any of this, or, I think one of the things I've done in the past is not really shared my social, but I was telling you that if people want to follow me,
Okay.
I will be deleting the apps off my phone in 2 days, but
I was going to say, yeah.
my Instagram is m.c.z.b, which is my initials. But of course, you can always post it in yours. And if people want to find me on there, my blog or website, I guess it would be, is on there. And then I'm thinking about doing a Substack. I think the problem is it feels a little bit like it's just another form of social media. So I'm dabbling, but I'm also realizing it could become a scroll problem.
I can understand where that's coming from, especially because I don't know a platform alive at this point now. Like, once Pinterest turned, I knew like it was game over. I'm not aware of any platforms, and rightfully so, that are not heavily invested in the different things that keep you on that platform and scrolling and things like that. Whatever the book was, what is the book? Scarcity Brain? Yeah. So after reading or listening to Scarcity Brain, I never have looked at anything the same anymore. And I just look at even the fact that there's no social media that goes left or right. It all goes vertical. And that's all for a reason. So totally get where you're coming from. However, I will put links to anything that you've got as far as like your blog and things like that. I'll put links to all that in the show notes. And yeah, that'll be it, because we could keep going for forever. So Thank you so much again for being here. And again, for anyone that is still with us here, I sincerely appreciate you listening to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. This may very well be the last episode of the year. So if that is the case, then again, thank you for being a part of this. And I, Lord willing, will see you in 2026. So thanks again. Take care, and we'll see you next time.